Welcome to Global Connections on ThinkTech Hawaii. I'm your host, Jay Fidell. This episode is called The Loopholes in the Iran Israel Ceasefire. The war may not be over at all. Our guest for the show is Dr. Roopmati Khandekar, geopolitical analyst. Welcome to the show, Roopmati.
Aloha, Jay. Thank you for having me on your show. Always such a good pleasure.
You know, Roopmati, Trump will play a pivotal role. And the U.S. under him cannot so easily withdraw from the quicksand of this Middle East conflict without first having a conclusive result of Iran's nuclear program. But we don't have that. That's the problem. And to the extent there is a ceasefire, or what do you want to call it, a temporary truce in the Middle East with Iran, there are loopholes. There are loopholes inside and outside. So let me tell you about some of the ones that I've been thinking about. First of all, what's the upshot result? It's not really settled. It's a ceasefire, not a truce. Are they really together on it? Are they really in agreement? Not clear at all. In this country, we have Steve Bannon and the MAGAs. They're divided. They remain opposed to further, conflict by Trump against Iran. Netanyahu is unpredictable. Trump himself is unpredictable. He lives in a world of distractions, and he distracts us. He distracts himself. It's not clear that he's going to be able to focus going forward. Iran, as we know, is angry and determined. The people of Iran are on the side of the theocracy. If there's anybody out there who opposes, if there's any resistance in Iran, it's hard to find these days. They're in the streets demonstrating for the government by the hundreds of thousands, including at the funerals recently, a few days ago, the funerals of all the people that Israel killed in its bombing, its assassination bombing. A fact is that Iran still has the uranium, 408 kilograms. It can still make bombs. I think that's pretty clear. The fact is that Iran still has lots of missiles in its arsenal, and it can get more. It can get more from, gee whiz, other countries. For example, China, maybe Russia. And there are lots of proxies it still has. And some of them are weakened, of course, we know that. But they're still out there, and they would respond, to direction from Iran, a direction to attack Israel again and to, oppose the resolution of any conflict. And Andy Borowitz, who is a kind of political humorist, put out a Borowitz article yesterday where he said that Trump was going to issue an executive order changing the meaning of the word obliterated from what we know as the meaning now to something not obliterated, but delayed for months. And that's really what it is. So no matter what Trump said, the reality is it's not obliterated, it's delayed. So we have no allies. We have no allies. The countries that he might have cemented allies relationships with are not our allies on this. They are not going to put boots on the ground. They're not going to supply weapons. They're not going to support Trump's next maneuver here. And some countries do not wish him well at all. In fact, they would help Iran, Pakistan, Turkey, Russia, China, which is building the Belt Road across Iran. It's very important to them to support Iran. So he can't count on Europe for anything. He doesn't have friends elsewhere. If he does it again, he's going to have to do it without support. Interesting. And thus, this battle with Iran, and it's essentially the U.S. against Iran, has become an icon between the U.S. and everyone else. I mean, Israel certainly, as an ally, I suppose, of the U.S., but that's sometimes questionable because they don't necessarily get along. So what we have is a lot of loopholes, if you will, geopolitical loopholes in the possibility that Trump would be able to mount a second attack against Iran. Now, I know you have other loopholes to discuss. Can you tell me your loopholes, Roopmati?
Jay, you have covered all of them, if I must say so. But Jay, see, a war strategy is that you have a clearly defined purpose and you know the means to achieve that purpose, and you know and you achieve consequences after that purpose. This war was just impulsive, reactionary, and reactive. There was no, what do you say? It was just a give and take and a hard tussle. 12-day war, but hard tussle. And technically, when they say ceasefire, they don't say end of the war or end of hostility. So they keep the ends open, and that is where we find these loopholes in our ceasefire, Jay. Because in this ceasefire, you had loudmouths, everybody proclaiming victories on their side. Everybody was giving victory speeches. And so we say, like, how each one had their perspective of victory was that Iran, they thought that their arsenal definitely turned out to be more deadlier than what analysts had proven. And this 3,000 plus missiles, 500 fired through the 12-day period, more coming up, threatening to put up more. Even Ben Ghafi, inner circle of Netanyahu, had said that they clearly underestimated Iran's strike power. That was the issue. And Jay, the US, through red and blue, has had unconditional support for Israel. And secondly, unconditional and no compromise situation for Iran having a nuclear weapon. So that is the crux of this entire struggle to not let Iran have a nuclear weapon. They have started off with a lie, saying that they will go for peaceful purposes. They want just so why lie about it and have huge enrichment facilities built? So these are going to move in. Why? Not because they're guardians of universe or Earth. They are going to be the ones affected by this nuclear weapon. So they want to have a defense. It's not an offense. It's the defense that is happening in this war, Jay. Because if Israel and US don't destroy these nuclear weapons, they are going to be used by Iran against these very same countries. And Iran has made it very clear about it. So, Jay, this main purpose of this war was to destroy these uranium, enriched uranium, like you said, 408 kg. But where is it is the issue. Now, Israel has categorically said that Iran has to hand over this enriched uranium because they were taken out in lorries, dispersed, gone where we don't know. It has got lots of allies who are waiting to harbor their interests, like in Russia. Russia is busy, thank God, in the Ukraine war. Pakistan, Turkey, they will help Iran in this enriched uranium thing. And till that uranium is out of the hands of the Iranians, Jay, they have capability to produce around 10 nuclear weapons. Now, Israel has 90 nuclear warheads, but that is, have they proclaimed that they will destroy this and wipe out any? No, they have always used it for self-defense. Even the Iron Dome is a self-defense mechanism that they have had, but they have never used that facility against anybody unless attacked. It's always the second strike that has happened with Israel, and that's a sign of being civilized. Now, these people strike soft targets through terrorism. They strike you when you're not least expecting it. So, to deal with rogue nations is a whole new chapter that has come in. And Trump, while doing this, has to take care of uh, the air bases. Like the Qatar air base was one of the most military high tech bases of the US. Everybody was evacuated, and Iran struck. It was okay. US needed to step out of this because we didn't want the US to have more losses. So he announced the ceasefire. Now, like he's the monitoring authority. For Iran, it becomes a time to rejuvenate J. But for Israel, they have to go back to fighting Hezbollah and Houthi, and the war front continues on that end. They do have finances to take care of J. They do have depleting missile stock. They have been fighting with Iran almost like this is second one going on. So, Jay, when you have Israel in this situation, you need to understand that they will do whatever it takes to keep Iran non-nuclear.
Well, let's talk about the mood in this country for a moment. Steve Bannon has been active and he's been in the media, and his friends have been in the media. There have been some media arguments, if you will, about what happened and what could happen. And it's very clear that the MAGAs under Steve Bannon do not support any conflict in the Middle East. The, they're abiding by what Trump said in his platform: no foreign wars, and that's very nationalistic of them. Um, but the fact is that this is a foreign war, and if Trump tries to do it again, attack Iran again, he's going to have to fight with Steve Bannon and the MAGAs and a lot of Republicans who don't want to see it happen again, and that's kind of too bad. You'd think that Trump was all powerful after his success in Congress, even yesterday. But I think he's going to have a problem. He comes back from this attack. He claims victory. He claims obliteration, which was a lie. And then immediately he's involved in all these stories of cruelty and meanness over immigration. He's involved in the Supreme Court issue on the Gaza case last Friday. He's involved in what's going on in Congress over the big, beautiful bill, which appears in large part to have gotten through the Senate, has to go back to the House now. And it may actually get passed, even though everyone seems to agree it's a terrible bill for the country. So we've got all these issues going on. If he were called upon to mount another attack on Iran, he'd have a lot of resistance and distraction in this country. It's hard to say that a majority of people would support him. They would not. It's hard to say that a majority of legislators would support him. They would not. And so it would be harder for him. The general idea is fatigue. Mm. The country had a very exciting experience 10 days ago with the attack and Trump's claim of obliteration. That's enough. It's like the media covered it completely. It was saturating the media for days. And when you have that, you have fatigue. And people's reaction is, not again? Are we going to have to do that again? With all the risks that he narrowly escaped? He got through it. And it was, quote, successful. But was it really? And if he had to do it again, people would say, he may not be able to succeed the second time around, because Iran is going to be more difficult to deal with the second time around. Iran learns, and Trump may not learn here. So that's the story, I think, in terms of the division in the country, the resistance in the country, and it's not clear to me that he can do it a second time around. The military too, and his generals are very docile. He set it up that way. They are probably going to come up with some soft objections to any effort he makes to do it again. So on the one hand, that's one side of it. On the other hand, you're right. Iran is more angry, more determined than before. It still has the uranium. It still has missiles which it can successfully fire into Israel and get through the Iron Dome. It did already. It had a lot of, success in swarming over the Iron Dome. And although its proxies took a hit over, their strength in, for example, Hezbollah and probably Hamas and the Houthis over the past few months, fact is they can be restored, reinvigorated by money and weapons. And so it's not like Iran has no proxy opportunities. It does. And so, and the third area of discussion is that Trump has no allies except Israel, and that's sometimes you wonder about that. And a lot of people not only are not his allies, the EU is not his ally. It's hard to say that any country is his ally on this, except Israel and to some extent the U.S. but he has some enemies that are operating here that are probably working with Iran to galvanize the creation of the bomb, the delivery of the bomb, and the resistance to any attack by Trump. So that's, as I mentioned, Pakistan, Turkey, Russia, China. All of them have geopolitical interests in helping Iran. So it'd be hard to see that Trump could do this and do it as successfully. And I mean that as a euphemism because it's not clear it was successful as before. And what's even more interesting, Roopmati, is that the U.S. and Israel are the sole defenders of, you called it civilization, and I agree, in the Middle East. And with that in mind, it's these two are the sole defenders of the liberal world order as it is being tested in the Middle East. And there's a lot of countries that are not in the liberal world order that would like to see chaos, that would like to see the liberal world order come down. They're on the other side of it. So what we have is this inflection, which has much greater implications than just nuclear weapons for Iran, of the two sides of the liberal world order issue happening, and we're in the middle of it. And so I don't think the current circumstances would permit Trump to do it again. But you know what? Circumstances may change.
Of course.
So the loopholes that you're talking about, that we're talking about, may become accentuated as and when circumstances change and Trump tries it again. Although it's going to be hard for him to do that, but he may be forced to do that by the change in circumstances. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Jay, so rightly put. The domestic population that we have is democracy. You have free speech. You have your freedom to criticize the government on anything and everything. They talk, they vocal, they criticize, they bring you down. But see, Iran is a theocratic society. They don't have social rights. They don't have culture. They're oppressed culturally. They are depressed. Socially, their economic trickling down of benefits from the government is to the bare minimum. Still, today, in the face of a war, they stood behind their leader. That is the difference between our population and their population. We call them fanatic. We expected an uprising, but they lined up behind the government, Jay, and not in small numbers, in huge numbers. In every street and every social post that you see, they were praising their fanatic theocratic government, letting go of freedom and criticizing America and Israel, who are promising them this freedom that if you bring down the regime, we will support you. But they chose the other path. And this liberal world order that we talk about, Europe, fails to understand that after the two immediate targets of death to Israel and death to America, they're going to come after Europe. The sleeper cells are in Europe, active in Europe. The infrastructure that is going to be bombarded is Europe. Today, Europe is a different state, different cluster of nations than we had 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Next 2 decades, Jay, we will not be able to recognize Israel. Just the Middle East will move to that part of, because of the demographic, what do you say, accumulation that they have, that strength that they have. They will take over Europe in that way. Culturally, Europe is gone. But to back up Israel and US, like you made this big point that there are no allies who come forward and help. Uh, Hardly a few who will be counted on the hands. But for Iran, there are proxies, there's Russia, there's China. Now, this population of Iran, Jay, which has lined up behind the government, they've made the government stronger. What happens? They go for revamping the entire system. They understood that they failed in the airstrike capability and the air detection capability. What have they done? They have ordered the S-400 from Russia on a quick delivery basis. They have ordered the J-10C from fighter jets, 4.5 generation from China, J. in huge numbers. Now, this will be a different ball game that Israel will deal with when you'll have fighter jets coming in to attack. So, Iran is moving in this direction. Why? Because they have a lot of money, oil producing. You need to go after the resources now. There's a big theory that oil and gas, everything, but why do you need to clip this oil and gas? Because they are financing terror, they are financing these purchases, they are financing all these rogue activities rather than just a development of a nation. So that's why to Iran is the largest producer of oil and gas. That needs to be clipped or sanctions or something. But our problem is, Jay, China and Russia supported very wholeheartedly. You had these cargo jets which came in during this 12-day war. They were dropping off missiles, you know, setting up the stage for these future purchases. So there's a different kind of strategy on their part. Yeah, if Israel is supported by America, there is a hue and cry in every media headline. Why don't they make this that China has supported Iran wholeheartedly? Russia has come in. You have Turkey come in. Pakistan, even Iran made the statement that if we can't make if anybody bombs Iran, Pakistan will use their nuclear weapon. So that Islamic State is still having a nuclear weapon which can be used or which they consider to be their own. So this kind of complicated situation, Jay, of geopolitics is very interesting to see because this war never will trickle down to a World War III or whatever. It will be one on one, but now the one on one will be more acute strike capability. It will not just go for defenses.
The ceasefire was imperfect, as you
Yes.
suggest. These loopholes make it very imperfect. I remember that Trump announced a ceasefire before there was a ceasefire. He didn't really get all of the parties, Israel and Iran, on board. And then after he announced it, although it didn't exist at the time, he muscled them both into agreeing to it. Okay, all right, they agreed to it, or they didn't disagree, but that's imperfect. That's not necessary. That's performative. So he could go announce to the world that he had obliterated their nuclear facilities, which wasn't true, and that he had won and claimed success. That's what he likes to do. That's what he's done before in many occasions. But one really creepy thing, one creepy article that I saw is that the retaliation against the American base in Qatar was also imperfect. He apparently gave him the nod. He said, look, I know you need to retaliate against American bases. So take this base. You can retaliate against this base, and I'll make sure to move everybody off this base so that there's no casualties. And I think that's very interesting. So again, he was looking for a performative result. So there was a retaliation, and it helped Iran, claim there was a retaliation. It helped Trump claim that retaliation was minimal and there were no casualties, but it was a setup. It was kind of staged. And I don't think it really signifies as you said, the end of hostilities. Hostilities are not over. There's another shoe to drop here. And as I mentioned, I think it will require other circumstances, a change in circumstances, before Trump can get back in. On the other hand, I think the aggression will come from Iran. Iran is all lined up. Iran has not finished its retaliation. And it has the weapons, it has the will, it has the support of the people, and so forth. And we are, handicapped because we don't necessarily have the support of the people. So my question to you is, what scenarios are possible? Will this reveal itself in an attack by proxy? Will it reveal itself in rhetoric where they, argue with each other and insult each other? How will this come about? Because Trump has a lot of players on the stage right now. He's arguing with everybody about everything. He's being mean and cruel and nasty in every single direction. There's nothing that you could like him about, nothing you could conclude that he's helping anybody. He's hurting everyone. So that sort of separates him and the possibility of support. So I'm not sure it comes from the side of the US and Trump's maneuvers. It could very well come from a proxy, which attack. If you had, for example, another attack like October 7th, that would clearly, resume the conflict. And then Trump would be in a better position in terms of demanding the opportunity, the public support to go after Iran again. But Iran's not stupid. They're not going to connect themselves up. If there was another attack on Israel, they would distance themselves. It would be deniable. So this would have to be a change in circumstances where you could point directly to Iran and thus, gain the rhetorical power, the geopolitical power to go after them again. I personally cannot see a change in circumstances that would allow Trump to do it again. But on the other hand, the future right now seems to be in Iran's hands, no?
Yeah, Jay. See, it was like you said, a WWE kind of slam fight. Everybody knew what they were going to do. Everybody was putting their boots off the ground and everything. No minimum damage. But take care of this fact that on one side, when Israel, and the US have targeted just the nuclear sites, the bunker ballisters have gone and targeted underground facilities. Iran has been attacking critical infrastructure in Israel. They have not kept any rules of the game. They have broken, they have attacked civilian targets in Israel. So Iran will never follow rules. And till now, it was sending proxies. Hezbollah immediately became active. So, Iran will never stop poking. And this will continue till the time there is this point of hatred which is so deep within these people when they are, like you said, Trump allowed them to bomb the Qatar base for their retaliation, and that retaliation they reflected in their speeches to their population that Iran has attacked US and Iran has attacked Israel. So it was a big thing. Iran is alone fighting their enemies, Jay. So the hatred is very, very profound, and it's sustained over so many centuries that they have come to the point that they need to destroy and become the leader of this Middle Eastern world, this Muslim world, the Muslim Ummah that they call it. They want them to. This gives them the head. They'll become at the helm of affairs in the Muslim world if they, because you have a three-pronged tussle here. Turkey is trying to come back to the Ottoman Empire supremacy kind of a thing. Saudi Arabia is going for their economic prowess over everything else. Iran wants their country to be the regional power. So, and they have a very conflicting relationship with the Arab world, Jay. And imagine after this conflict, 12-day conflict, they have decided to open a new chapter with Arab nations. So they're willing to let go of their previous enmity to gather more allies and strength in the Middle East. Arab world is very important to them. Jordan, Saudi Arabia were fighting for the US and Israel. They need them on their side. And you see the map of the Middle East is going to be changed profoundly, Jay, because you have Israel surrounded by two civilizational states, one in Egypt and one in Iran. Now, geographically, these are protected through the physical terrain, but their size, their sheer size to control such countries is going to be such a big task for any coalition. Additionally, these people are waiting to destroy the state of Israel and then come after America. And this is not just a statement that they'll come after America, because every terrorist attack has got an element or hand from this region that happens on US soil. It's not too far away for them, Jay. It's just a flight out.
You mentioned the Gulf states. You mentioned Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, maybe Kuwait. All of these are big question marks. They were Saudi Arabia was going to cut a deal with Israel before October 7th, and one of the reasons that Iran caused Hamas to attack on October 7th was to block that deal, and that was successful. They did block that deal. But where are the Gulf states now? Are they a loophole here in this truce? They did not support Israel or the U.S. in this recent war. They haven't said much about supporting them in the future. As you say, the map is changing. But how is it changing for the Gulf states? They're doing watchful waiting is what they're doing. But where are they going to land up if there's a resumption of conflict?
See, Jay, for the Arab world, uh, Iran stands to be a formidable rival, as always. It's a huge country, allied well with Russia, supported by China. They're a big part of the Belt Road Initiative. The first freight train was going through, and this is going to open trade routes among them. So economically, they want to get into more, viable things other than oil and gas. Now, the Arab states, or the UAE for that instance, have shifted their dependence on oil and gas to tourism. Correct? So they tried to find more avenues of revenue and everything. So they've diversified their dependence of economic resources. For them, Iran becomes a regional rival. And to keep them down, or to keep them engaged in war, is lucrative for the Arab world. They are not going to risk their own economic progress or their their position in the geopolitical world to come to the help of Iran, because the Abraham Accords that have come in, and to have an alliance with Israel, or to have these business deals with the US, like they have the gold card, the gold citizenship, pay the money and you come and become a US citizen. For them, they like it more than, going and helping Iran. They're moving away from theocracy because they want to present themselves as a more liberal uh, uh, Islamic. So they've taken a completely different path, these Arabs, Jay. And Iran is deep into theocracy just for suppressing their local population. The authoritarianism is not through political force. The authoritarianism is through cultural repression. So, two different sides of the coin, Jay. And Saudi brings in the tenets of economic liberalization, uh, freedom for culturally uh, becoming more open, hosting these international events like the FIFA, everything. So they're opening up their society. They want to come in with the new world order or the liberal world order rather than go back to supporting Iran. Jay. So Iran will never have the support of these people, Jay.
You mentioned about sleeper cells in Europe. And of course, the U.S. is vulnerable as it was at 9/11, and there's still a conversation about whether Saudi Arabia somehow supported the attack on 9/11. But I think we should discuss the possibility that Iran will follow through with terror in the United States, that it has the capability to do that. And it certainly has the motivation to do that because it's so angry. This war is certainly not over. It's simmering now. It's waiting for its next chapter. It's waiting for its next eruption. No issue about that. But do you think that it will reveal itself by a terror attack in the United States? And how would that work?
So you never leave an injured snake. You either kill it or you let it. Don't touch it. It's like that. So now Iran is a wounded snake. It will come back for revenge. And Jay, uh, what was the aim of this entire mission? It was to change the regime and not let Iran have a nuclear weapon. So they targeted Khamenei in this. Now there's a fatwa. Fatwa is like a directive issued to kill against Trump and Netanyahu. So it's a directive to any Muslim citizen or person who would kill them would get a lucrative reward. So they have just issued this fatwa. There was a fatwa issued under against Salman Rushdie also. So, but he was walking the streets of New York. So they are like this, and they're very vengeance for them is never given up. So on the streets of New York or on the sleeper cells of Europe, they are going to brew up things in such a way that they target freedom. Now, the circus attack in Russia, the theater attack, the Iranians were involved in that. So, you'd never know who, like, the mind of a terrorist is fanatic, and how this war will affect their indoctrination is a whole new different chapter, because terrorism works at a very individual level also, Jay. Like they will nab a few they will take hostage, they will stab, they will, all these things happen. And when you do that on a street, it immediately curtails the freedom of the entire society over there. So for the Iranians, you don't exactly know what is their mindset.
No, but they're really angry. And I recall that Mike Pompeo, who was then the Secretary of State, who had been the Secretary of State, there was an assassination attempt on him by Iran. So Iran, is fully capable of organizing an assassination attempt in this country. It's motivated to do that. And indeed, there have been a couple of assassination attempts, not by Iran, but others in this country against Trump himself. So, I'm thinking it would certainly fall within a range of possibilities that Iran would go after Trump in this country or go after public officials in this country to make the point. And it could do this by motivating a lone wolf character or a group, and it would have them make rhetoric to suggest that they supported Iran and the terrorists. So that seems to me to be entirely possible. The problem is that would give rise to a change in public opinion in this country to go after Iran. Except it would, here's an interesting observation on it, it would not necessarily be limited to the nuclear weapons and the 408 kilograms of uranium. It would be broader than that. It would be to go after the leadership full tilt boogie. It would go after, the theocracy in general, and it would be a much broader war if that happened, and it was associated with in Iran, a move by Iran as a state actor. But they would deny it, and I think the smart money for them is to set it up so they can deny it. But one way or the other, I think we're going to see something like that.
Yeah.
This is not over.
They are gearing up, Jay. They are gearing up with ammunition. And to go for the assassination, they will go for Netanyahu first. So they are very shrewd about it. They will take, they know they can, they feel that they have superiority over Israel. And that is the point of this entire thing, that their hatred and their aim and mission to destroy Israel is very focused. And America stands in between that. And why it stands is because of not only Israel being an ally, it's about the total domination of this fanatic thought process in the Middle East. If Israel is the only locus which is pro or America's vantage point in the Middle East, it's not a simple thing, Jay, for any country to have this kind of support or this kind of point in an entire region, which will be able to sustain a 3-year war almost, is not you cannot find it anywhere. Entire Europe is right now just hiding in the bushes. They don't want to come in. They don't want to talk. They don't want to give their opinion. And if it affects them, they will want the first thing they will look to NATO to come and help them, or NATO to give them a security umbrella. So Jay, they are in such a what do you say? Iran is in a strong position because of their proximity to Israel. They know they can attack, and that confidence gives them this. And if this was a serious ceasefire, Jay, why would they indulge in amping up their ammunition, Jay?
Yeah. And although there was some talk about blowing up their oil facilities, I don't think that really happened. I think they still have, in large part, their oil facilities are intact, so they can still, generate revenue with oil and gas. So yeah, this is interesting because it's hard to figure out where and when it's going to happen. We only know that it's not over. And I guess I would ask you for your final thoughts on this, Roopmati. Where are we, and what is likely to happen here? And what you, as the Secretary of State, would do, because our options seem very limited. Trump's options seem very limited in view of the flaws in this ceasefire, in this result. It's not a robust result. It's temporary. It's fragile. It's flimsy even. What would you do as Secretary of State?
Will not let the most dangerous regime in the world have a nuclear weapon. Period. Jay. That is the biggest mission that you can go after, because after that, everything is going to change. Everything is going to implode, and it's going to be very following up, cumulative, one after the other. Things are going to happen, and Iran is like such a rogue state. It would start dictating affairs everywhere in the world where there's a conflict. They would come in, their mind would go to a whole new different level. They were thrashed in this 12-day war, but the speech that you hear from Khamenei is about victory. So imagine if they had something of a real victory or something of a nuclear weapon. They have been at this nuclear enrichment and uranium enrichment thing for decades, and it's peaceful. It's this, the facilities that have, scientists have been killed, military leaders have been killed, commanders have been killed, but they don't let go of this mission to have a nuclear weapon. And if they just had a nuclear weapon for defense, like the civilized world still holds, every country holds nuclear weapons which they hold for defense as a deterrent. So that is a sign of civilization. This is real. Alexander had called them savage, you know that.
Right, right. Ali Khamenei is, I think he's 86 years old.
Mhm.
And that could be a very propitious change in circumstance if he cannot serve anymore, if he dies, gets sick, what have you. What would the result be, and how should the U.S. handle that?
Yeah, for them, it is this perpetual theocracy that they have supremacy. He's already named three of them, isn't it? Three successors he's named through. Uh, First was Khomeini, and then was Khamenei. This Khamenei has named three people, and one of his sons is also part of that. And all three of them follow the same agenda of keeping Iran in this. Iran is a tiered society. The top tier is of this theocratic fanatics. Then the bottom, and then the domestic middle, the military rulers. Then you have the political leadership, just as a facade to the entire world that they do have a democracy working, and then the domestic population, which is absolutely fine with this theocracy, which we mistook as being disgruntled and would help the outside world. But no, they like the inner circle. So they have a legacy that they continue, and a very strong one in that. To strike them is going to be very, very difficult internally.
So it wouldn't make any difference if
No.
there was a successor, because the successor would be
Same.
predictably just like him. Yeah. Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks so much to our guest, Dr. Roopmati Khandekar, geopolitical analyst. I'm Jay Fidell, host of Global Connections. We have discussed the loopholes in the Iran Israel ceasefire and what is likely to follow. Thanks to our viewers for watching. We'll see you again soon for the next one. Aloha. Aloha, Roopmati.
Aloha, Jay. Thank you so much.